Okay, we are live on streaming. And so I will introduce to you, well, as a preliminary matter, for the scoring panelists that are on today, I'll need you as soon as we conclude and before we start giving comments to complete your scoring sheets. And when you've completed your scoring sheets, if you can send me a message in the chat that indicates that you've completed your scoring sheets so that I have verification so that we can all start giving feedback, because these folks have worked really hard and they can all benefit from your feedback with respect to that. So from that standpoint, if you guys can make sure to send me a chat as soon as you've got that done. Normally, if we were in a courtroom, I'd ask you all to rise and I would introduce Judge Bechtel, who would be presiding today. But since we're all virtual, I will just introduce and turn it over to Judge Bechtel. Thank you.
So are we waiting for check-ins to let us know that we're all clear?
The first thing that we need to do with respect to the scoring panelists is to be certain that no one in the room, that you don't recognize the names of any of the current team members here.
Can we get the rosters uploaded into the chat?
Yes, Your Honor, I apologize. But one of our team members appears to be having some difficulty. She is not being allowed in. Abby Couillard.
Okay. I don't right now have anybody in the waiting room. So
Is she going to the right one? Give me 1 second to check with her and see if there's any technical issues on her side. I am so sorry for this.
in the meantime, scoring panelists will get you your rosters here in just a second so that you can make sure that there aren't any conflicts. Team members, if you can look at the scoring panelists here, and let us know if you have any conflicts with any of the scoring panelists. That's the other way that we can do this, and we can see them. We don't need the rosters quite yet for that. Okay, looks like we've got Ms. Couillard about to get joined in again. Okay. All right. So now if I can please have a member of Team Lilac and a member of Team Daffodil chat to everyone your witness rosters so that our scoring panelists can look at the list and make sure that they don't have any conflicts. All right, who do we have from Team Lilac? And can we upload your list, your roster?
Yes, it should be sending in the chat in just one moment.
Okay, great. And how about Team Daffodil?
I have sent it in the chat. Can everyone see it?
Let's see. Looks like I have a Daffodil roster and a Lilac roster now. Yes. All right, scoring panelists, did any of you see any conflicts with any of the current team members? And folks, we're just waiting to make sure there are no conflicts in courtroom 2, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, folks, we've got the okay. There are no conflicts in any of the other rooms. So Judge Bechtel, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Doug Bechtel. I'll be presiding over this case. At this time, the court will call case 21 CV 303720, Dakota Weirs v. Lush Fertilizers, Inc. Let me ask first, is the plaintiff ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
So a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, if anybody's video recording, you need to have the permission of both teams in order to be taping this round. If you do not have permission, please do not be recording. Also, to let everybody know, teams as well as galley members at the Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs of the competition during this round. The team participation in the state tournament grants automatic permission and use of these photos by the Colorado Bar Association. If there's anybody in the courtroom who is not connected with the teams competing in this round, I would ask that they leave. I will remind the teams that there are no recesses allowed, with the exception of those granted for a health emergency, and especially not between the end of witness examination and the beginning of closing arguments. I'm going to go to each of the scoring panelists and ask if they have any reason to believe that they are biased in judging either team. We'll start off with Judge Lung. Mr. Pereira.
No.
And Ms. Cope.
No.
Thank you. I would remind the teams and coaches that any disputes arising out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. The compliance with time requirements will be considered in scoring individual performances. At this time, I'm going to ask each side to introduce their participating team members, both attorneys and witnesses, starting first with the plaintiff, please.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Ashlyn Dutcher. I will be giving the opening statement, performing the direct of Dakota Weirs, and performing the cross of Lake Donghorn.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Kitty Wright, and I will be conducting the direct of Carson Durst and the cross-examination of Dr. Devin Williams, as well as the preliminary matters.
Good evening, Your Honor. I am Caitlin Duffy. I will be performing the direct. I will be conducting the direct of Dr. Casey Rogers. I will be performing the cross of Skylar Weirs, and I will be conducting the closing argument. Your Honor, at this time, may our witnesses introduce themselves?
Yes, please.
My name is Srinidhi Santhakumar, and I am portraying Dakota Weirs.
My name is Maggie Kilman, and I am portraying Carson Durst. My name is Ella Simons, and I am portraying Dr. Casey Rogers.
Thank you to the plaintiff. Defense?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Shayda Zarin, and on behalf of my client, Lush Fertilizers. Today, I'll be presenting the defense's preliminary matters and conducting the direct examination of Blake Doncourt and the cross-examination of the plaintiff. Permission for my fellow counsel to introduce themselves.
Please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Ajitha Kanojan. On behalf of my client, Lush Fertilizers, today I will be presenting the defense's opening and conducting the direct examination of Skylar Wires and the cross-examination of Carson Durst.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Mallory Camberos, and on behalf of my client, Lush Fertilizers, today I will be presenting the defense's closing arguments and conducting the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams and the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers. Permission to introduce our witnesses.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Elbert, and I will be playing Blake Doncourt.
Good afternoon, Honor. I'm Weston Nicholson, and I'll be portraying Skylar Weirs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Abigail Couillard, and I will be Dr. Devin Williams.
Thank you. So now we're going to swear everybody in. First of all, team members, if you can please raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? Perfect. Now it's for the witnesses. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Thank you. Gallery members, including teachers and attorney coaches, family members and friends, please raise your right hand. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? And finally, scoring panelists. I know Judge Lung has been having issues with his computer. Let's hope that he is still, he said that he is present, he said in the chat. Scoring panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? Perfect, thank you. So let's begin with preliminary matters. First from the plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would just like to check that you have a copy of our trial roster.
I did receive that, thank you.
All right, and we would just also like to check that our scoring panelists also have a copy of our roster. And Your Honor, do you have copies of all the exhibits and stipulated facts from the court case?
I do.
Your Honor, permission to stop time in case of technical difficulties?
Granted.
Your Honor, the plaintiff requests that team members be allowed to screen share exhibits whenever the need arises.
If we have technical difficulties, yes, granted.
And Your Honor, permission for the exhibits to be constructively published to the jury after the exhibit has been admitted into evidence.
Granted.
And finally, Your Honor, permission for the plaintiff to reserve time on closing for the rebuttal.
Defense, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
So that's granted.
And the plaintiff asks that the same privileges, excluding time for rebuttal, be granted to the defense as well.
Granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further sorry?
Perfect, thank you.
No further preliminary matters.
Thank you. Defense preliminary matters?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. The people in defense request that the witnesses are allowed a copy of the exhibit packets and the personal witness statements nearby for expediency's sake.
As long as it's clear that they're not testifying from the exhibits should be available to them, but that's granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further preliminary matters.
Plaintiff, opening statement, please.
May I start, Your Honor?
Please.
Greed. Greed has made Dakota Weirs unable to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here in this courtroom today because a company, Lush Fertilizer, has made a product that we will prove gave Dakota Weirs non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, who is Dakota Weirs? Dakota Weirs is a 20-year-old who was an amazing student in high school. She was even in the National Honor Society. She loved to help her community by doing community service. She loved to play the piano to feel connected to her deceased grandfather. Due to her piano playing abilities, she was able to receive a full ride scholarship to the very prestigious art and music school, Juilliard. An amazing opportunity, right? All of her dreams were coming true, but that was all shattered when she received non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Her cancer made it difficult for her to even sit down. She couldn't complete daily tasks without feeling excruciating pain. Due to her cancer, she couldn't complete Juilliard's rigorous course in order to become a world-renowned pianist. She had to put a screeching hold on her scholarship. She had to put a screeching hold on her life's dream and goals, all because of greed. Now, what is the connection between the plaintiff and the defendant in this case? The answer to that question is a product, Lush Fertilizer. The connection between Lush Fertilizer and the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Drufo. Drufo is a binding agent that Lush Fertilizer uses in their products. Now, the defense will try to paint this picture of how Drufo is very environmentally friendly and how it's very safe for their customers, but they forgot to put in one crucial element. If not baked, Drufo has a chance of being carcinogenic. And the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, Blake Doncourt, knew that, yet they still didn't bake it. Why? Greed. They wanted to make a profit over their customer safety. Let's move on to testify on the plaintiff's behalf of this trial. Dakota Weirs, who you know was the one suing Lush Fertilizer for their wrongdoings. Those wrongdoings include them not putting a warning label on their products. Mind you, they didn't put warning labels, they only put suggestions, just suggestions. Carson Durst is a former Lush employee who will bring some damning evidence against Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer. Carson was very close with Blake Doncourt, but ended up being fired from Lush Fertilizer. Lastly, we have Dr. Casey Rogers. Dr. Casey Rogers is a professor and a retired research analyst. She studies how prolonged exposure to different chemicals can affect different living species. She has made an article about the effect Drufo has on lab rats. You'll also hear from Skylar Weirs. They are the plaintiff's twin who is testifying on the defense's behalf of this trial, however. Skylar will try to testify about how great Drufo is and how Lush Fertilizer is. Yet she doesn't have a college education to do so. In this case, you will hear expert testimony from one witness on the plaintiff. Both the plaintiff and defense have to prove their case by a preponderance of evidence. The plaintiff has to be able to prove that Dakota Weirs' claims about Drufo causing her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is more probable than not. The defense has to be able to prove that Drufo not causing the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is more probable than not. Whoever has the most substantial evidence in this case is the one the jury should enter a verdict for. They have to be able to prove their case by testimony and evidence. After both sides have presented their case, the jury must choose a side they believe has the best case shown. Based on all the evidence and testimony presented to you, you will enter a verdict in favor of the party you best believe has proved the other party was negligent. If the evidence shows that Lush Fertilizer was negligent towards their customers by not putting the proper labeling and warning on their product, enter a verdict in the plaintiff's favor. If the evidence shows that Dakota Weirs was negligent by not wearing the protective equipment recommended, not required, I mind you, then vote in favor of the defense. With all of the evidence and expert testimony presented to you, I am certain you will vote in favor of the plaintiff. So ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you to please hear everybody's testimony and to look at all of the evidence presented to you. After doing so, ask yourself this question: who is really at fault here? The person who was young and had a whole career and life ahead of them until they got a horrible cancer, or the greedy company who favored money over the safety of others and made Dakota Weirs eventually unable to succeed?
Thank you. Does the defense wish to present an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Lush Fertilizer is falsely accused of negligence. The plaintiff is trying to put their own actions onto a company. We are here today to prove that Lush Fertilizer is not negligent and has performed every duty they were required to. At age 14, the plaintiff was hired to work at a gardening company. Due to their age, they were given the responsibility of spreading the fertilizer. What they were also given was a verbal instruction to wear a mask and protective gear. They were warned, both verbally and on the packaging, but did not comply. In addition to Lush Fertilizers, they had mentioned that they use various other fertilizer and lawn chemicals. The only reason the plaintiff has chosen to attack Lush specifically is because of documents seen on TV falsely accusing Drufo of being dangerous. The plaintiff did not wear a mask and has based their entire case on hearsay. To prove negligence, there are 4 requirements. 1, prove Drufo was manufactured by Lush Fertilizers. 2, prove that Lush Fertilizer did not exercise reasonable care and that the product was not used improperly. 3, the defendant was an expected user of the product. And lastly, prove that plaintiff behavior was not unreasonable by opposing counsel will fail to do this as the plaintiff acted unreasonably by not wearing a mask. What will be proven is that Lush is not at fault. Today we will call the first witness, Blake Doncourt. Ms. Doncourt is the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer. She is here today to establish that her company is not part of the cause of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. She has gone through the process needed to have the fertilizer be safe. She has taken the steps needed to make sure that there are no carcinogens to be able to prove that Lush has nothing to do with the plaintiff's cancer. Next, we have Skylar Wires. Ms. Wires is an investigative journalist. She is an expert in modern agri-tech. She has the knowledge, she has the skill to prove her points in journalism based on the rule of evidence 702. The rule of evidence 702 is when an expert witness is not needed to hold a specific degree, training, certificate, accreditation, or membership in a professional organization. An expert is qualified with the knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education. She's here today to show that Lush has nothing to do with Drufo causing non-Hodgkin lymphoma. She has spent a lot of time researching Drufo. She has looked at different ways that cancer could have been caused. Wires is also the twin of the plaintiff. Lastly, we have Dr. Devin Williams. Ms. Williams leads the toxicology research and development labs at Lush. She's also the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee. She has been in toxicology for 7 years. Dr. Williams is an expert in toxicology. She has the knowledge from having PhDs. She has a skill, she has the training, she has the experience, and she has the education. Members of the jury, today you will choose either the plaintiff who has neglected what is needed or the defense who will show you today that Lush has no part in the plaintiff's negligence. The defense will prove beyond a preponderance of evidence, which is a 50% chance that Drufo is not carcinogenic and Lush is not negligent. Today we hope that you, the jury, will choose the defense in honoring Lush Fertilizers.
Thank you. Plaintiff, please call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Ms. Weirs, I'll remind you that you are under oath. Please proceed.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Dakota Weirs, Weirs.
Why are you suing Lush Fertilizer?
I'm suing Lush Fertilizer because their products gave me cancer.
Let's move on to the symptoms of your cancer. Please tell the jury what kind of cancer you have.
I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Every day, my body hurts. Everything's so painful, and I'm exhausted all the time. I can barely help around the house. It's just so overwhelming at times.
Let's move on to some background about you. What was your life like before you got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I was a landscaping technician, or I was a landscaping technician for Havens Landscaping since I was 14. And at school, I was president of my school student government and a part of the National Honor Society.
What happened to your ability to complete daily tasks once you got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Because everything felt so painful and I was sick all the time, I couldn't complete daily tasks anymore.
What happened to your ability to complete daily tasks once you got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I couldn't do them anymore.
Before you got your illness, what were your plans for college?
I was planning on attending Juilliard, a college specializing in performing arts. I was awarded a full ride scholarship for my piano playing abilities, and everything was going so well. But after I obtained my cancer, I had to defer that scholarship.
Why was playing the piano so important to you?
It was important to me because it reminded me of my grandfather, who sadly passed away when I was 7. Playing the piano was my passion. It still is, but I can't do it anymore as well because anytime I sit at the piano, my legs bruise so often, which makes the shortest concerto even impossible.
After your grandfather passed away, how did playing the piano affect you?
It made me feel like I lost my grandfather a second time, and it made me feel so devastated.
Let's move on to your sibling, Skylar. From what you know, what does Skylar do for a living?
From what I know, Skylar is a freelance writer and a part-time server at a restaurant. She writes about, in my opinion, all sorts of crazy topics like UFOs, flat earth theories, anti-vax culture.
Let's move on to your relationship with Skylar. What was your relationship like with Skylar growing up?
She and I were very distant. Even though our parents made us do all the same activities together, we were still very distant. The only difference in our activities was I had a landscaping job and she didn't because she's allergic to grass.
How has your illness affected your relationship with Skylar?
I feel that she has become resentful to me. She's often said that I'm ruining the family legacy because when I got my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, my dad offered to help me out with paying my medical bills rather than her gambling debts.
How do you feel about Skylar testifying on the defense's behalf in this trial?
I fear that the jury is going to believe her smarts in this case, but if they truly know our relationship, our past history, and just how we are to each other, I feel that they'll believe me over her.
Let's move on to how you connected Lush Fertilizer to your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. How do you know that you use Lush Fertilizer at your place of work?
I knew it because I used it as a landscaping technician for Havens. My boss was even able to confirm that I had used Lush Fertilizer. He even gave me an ingredients list.
How did you link Lush Fertilizer to your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I was sitting at the couch one day and a story on the news came up. Somebody had leaked documents about Lush Fertilizer and its main ingredient, Drufo, possibly being carcinogenic, which is really how I connected it to.
Your Honor, may my co-counsel screen share what has been previously marked as Exhibit 1?
I think that the jury already has a copy of Exhibit 1. Let's go ahead and you said that your witnesses have access to the exhibits. If you could just have them review it.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may my witness refer to Exhibit 1?
Please.
Ms. Rears, do you recognize Exhibit 1?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It's a copy of the ingredients list of the Lush Fertilizer product that I used.
How do you know what it is?
Because I used it.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the ingredients list you saw?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence. Its authenticity and accuracy has been stipulated.
Defense position?
No objections, Your Honor.
Without objection, Exhibit 1 is received into evidence.
Ms. Weirs, on Exhibit 1, could you please read to the jury the ingredients list?
Drufo, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and iron.
On Exhibit 1, are there any requirements the user of the fertilizer has to follow?
No, there are recommendations though.
Are there any warning labels on there that say that this product can cause cancer?
No,
Does it say if you don't follow the user recommendations, you will have a chance of getting cancer?
no, it does not.
When you worked at Havens, who, to the best of your knowledge, wore the protective clothing and gear recommended?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody. It was so hot outside and it was so hot outside that people didn't feel the need to. And sometimes it was even too hot to the point where it could potentially be dangerous.
If you knew that Lush fertilizer was able to cause cancer, would you have done things differently?
Yes, I would have. I would have worn all the protective clothing recommended.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense cross?
Apologies, Your Honor. Brief technical difficulties. We would like to perform a cross-examination, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Ms. Weirs, you're in court today because you believe that Lush fertilizer is negligent, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you believe that you were once conscientious and are inculpable of any charges of negligence, yourself?
I don't understand the question.
I'll move on. You worked at Haven Landscaping, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you believe Lush fertilizer is the sole reason for your illness?
Yes, because it's the only one that has an ingredient that's carcinogenic.
And the reason is Drufo.
Yes, it is.
Let the record show that this is a clean and unmarked copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1. Ms. Weirs, could you please identify what this piece of evidence is?
It's the ingredients list of the Lush product that I used.
Could you please refer to the under the user safety recommendations and read out loud the first two sentences?
As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of a respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Please follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning, maintaining personal protective equipment.
And does this label clearly state that protective gear must be used while using the product?
It recommends that. It never says to actually use it.
In addition to this label, you were explicitly told by your boss to wear protective gear, correct?
Yeah, but again, he told me to, but it was so hot outside that I didn't really feel the need to.
So you didn't wear protective gear?
No.
So regardless of, if you had seen the safety recommendations on the label, you still heard your boss tell you to wear protective gear.
Yeah, but again, it was so hot outside and sometimes it was even too dangerous to do so.
So it was more convenient.
It was dangerous at sometimes to wear such protective clothing. Such really long clothing.
So you would have done things differently if you known that Lush caused non-Hodgkin's, correct?
Yes, but as I said earlier, I was not aware.
However, as someone who has worked with fertilizers for a while, would you agree that protective gear is necessary for any fertilizer?
So it is recommended to prevent further illnesses, but in this case, it's only recommended, so it didn't require me to wear it.
Just like the label had mentioned, correct?
Sure.
You also mentioned that the label on the fertilizer had the ingredients, but no warnings, correct? Line 89.
Huh? Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. You also mentioned that the label on the fertilizer had the ingredients, but no warnings, correct?
Yes.
Does it, or please refer to Exhibit 1 again. Does it or does it not list the possible injuries under the title hazards?
Yeah, but nothing about it being carcinogenic. It just says eye irritation, or it just says causes eye irritation. That's it.
Does it or does it not recommend taking proper safety measures to ensure the consumer's health?
Could you direct me to which part of that it is?
Right under the user safety recommendations.
Can you repeat the question?
Does it or does it not recommend taking proper safety measures to ensure the consumer's health?
Yeah, but it never said anything about it like being required. It only was recommended.
So this label did have warnings and even ways
Not
to prevent
warnings.
possible injury.
It didn't have warnings.
Yet you didn't take these into account when using the product.
Yeah, because there were only recommendations, not requirements.
Ms. Weirs, are you aware that negligence in this case can go both ways?
Yes, I'm aware.
Are you aware that negligence is best defined as failure to use reasonable care, resulting in damage or injury?
Sure.
Would you agree that you were negligent when you ignored the user safety's recommendation and your boss's advice?
Your Honor, argumentative.
Ms. Weirs, can you please refer back to line 62 through 66, starting with
Hold
mine
on,
and
hold on
ending
one
with-
moment. There's been an objection. I need to rule on the objection. There was an objection to argumentative defense response.
Ms. Weirs, could you refer back to line 62 through 66, starting with mine, ending with that?
One moment. I'm still trying to rule on the objection. I'm asking for your response
Sorry,
to the plaintiff's objection to argumentative.
I'll move on.
Objection sustained.
So So you ignored your boss's orders, therefore putting yourself at risk.
I don't.
Oh, yes or no? Continue.
Were they orders?
A yes or no answer will suffice.
But I'm not aware if they were orders or not, because I personally don't remember them being so, but I'm also not sure of that.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Does the plaintiff have any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Ms.
Please
Weirs,
proceed.
why didn't you wear the protective clothing recommended?
Because it was summer, it was too hot, and sometimes it was even dangerous in this Colorado weather to wear such long clothing.
Who wore protective clothing at your place of work?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody.
If you knew that Lush fertilizer was able to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, would you have worn the protective clothing equipment recommended?
Yeah, I would have.
No further redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense have any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Plaintiff, please call your next witness.
The plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand.
Ms. Durst, I'll remind you that you are under oath. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Ms. Durst. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Carson Durst, Durst.
Let's talk about your relation to Lush Fertilizer. When did you begin your career with Lush?
Immediately after I graduated from Arizona State University with my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, I was hired as an intern with Lush.
How did your career progress through the first 3 months?
It progressed fairly quickly. Within the first 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time job as a product development engineer.
Please tell the jury about the work that you did for the company.
My job was to assist in the development of Drufo, specifically researching certain chemical compounds that are in Drufo.
And are you still working with Lush?
No, I am currently working at Terra's Greenery.
Let's go back and talk about Drufo. What is Drufo?
Drufo is a patented bonding agent that Lush uses in their fertilizers to keep them preserved and intact.
What work did you do in connection with Drufo?
I helped research certain chemical compounds in Drufo.
Were there any safety tests performed on it?
Yes, the first safety test was done with the research development team. And during that time, my main job was to research a certain chemical compound in Drufo.
And what were the results of your research?
I had found a study that was done in England that concluded that one chemical compound in Drufo was carcinogenic in rats.
Let's talk about the additional studies that Lush conducted. Were there any other studies on the possible effects of Drufo?
Yes, there was another study. And following September of the first study, there was an in-house study that researched more on whether or not Drufo was carcinogenic in humans.
And did you face any pressures for certain results from the study?
Yes, I felt pressures to make sure that my research and my data was positively impacting the hypothesis that Lush had.
From what you could see, was this pressure for certain results common within the company?
From what I had observed, yes, they were very much making sure that our studies they made sure that our studies weren't concrete so as to allow the Lush to get out of hot water they're in, like lawsuits like this one.
What concerns did you or any other employees raise about Drufo?
When we had finished doing all of our research, we presented our findings to our product manager, Jerry Langley, as well as an upper exec, Alex Monroe. And another one of my coworkers had brought up that Drufo is possibly carcinogenic, especially mentioning non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
How did Alex Monroe respond to these concerns?
He wanted to keep it from the public until he could put out his own conclusion.
And what were the conclusions of the report he put out?
The conclusions basically just stated that us researchers need more time to conclude whether or not it was harmful to humans. It didn't even mention non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It did say that Lush should bake their fertilizer with Drufo in it to get rid of any carcinogenic risks, but the way it was worded just made Lush look better in the eyes of the public.
What happened after the report was released?
After the report was released, I felt so much pushback from upper senior members, and eventually the complaints got so much that an exec member had to come talk to me and put me on probationary status and on a performance improvement plan.
Did this affect the assignments you were given?
Yes, I became marginalized at work and I got all the assignments that nobody really wanted.
How did you deal with the treatment that you were facing?
I put up with it for a while, but after a certain amount of time with this treatment, enough is enough. I felt like I could possibly get fired, so I started looking for other jobs that were specifically in the field of fertilizer, because that's what I've so far done with my life. That's what I know. That's what I went to school for. And I found that Terra's Greenery had some openings, and so I applied there and got a job there prior to being fired.
Thank you, Misters. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, why are you testifying in court today?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Ms. Durst, why are you testifying in court today?
I am testifying in court today because there were concerns raised about Drufo and Lush ignored them.
What is your college education?
I'm sorry. My college education, I got a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering at Arizona State University.
Is it true you didn't get any job offers after graduation?
I hadn't gotten anything, so I applied as an intern at Lush.
Is it true that you confided in your friend Charles Doncourt about your lack of employment after graduation, correct?
Yes, I did.
How are you related to the Doncourt family?
One of the Mr. Doncourt's son, Charles, is one of my best friends.
It's true you were able to get a job with no experience based on your ties to the Doncourt family, correct?
I don't fully believe it was based on my ties with the Doncourt family. I think that my education kind of showed that I had some skills to be an intern.
How did your employment begin at Lush?
I was hired as an intern, and within the first 3 months, I was promoted to product development engineer.
A yes or no will suffice. Is it true that you didn't have any experience when getting employed?
Yes.
Now, is it true when you got promoted as a product development engineer, others thought you were unqualified?
Yes.
Did you have any issues on your performance reports?
Not until after I had worked on that study, an in-house study on whether or not Drufo was carcinogenic in humans.
A yes or no will suffice. Were these performance reports a problem throughout your career?
Not throughout my entire career, after I had done that study.
While researching Drufo, you found that it is not carcinogenic in humans, correct?
Correct, that was not in my research.
Now, how did you feel about Blake's response to your complaint?
To which complaint are you referring to?
When he asked you, give me one moment. I'm sorry. I will move on. Did you apply for another job while still working at Lush?
I did. I felt like they were going to fire me, so I wanted to have a job lined up.
And how come you applied for a new job even though you're close to the family?
Well, I just felt like the work situation wasn't good, and I just wanted to make sure I had a job lined up in case I did get fired.
And were you fired?
I was fired.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the plaintiff have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Ms. Durst, you mentioned the performance improvement plan. Do you believe that that was done? Do you believe that that was accurate?
No, I don't. I think it was just because of when I was working on the study.
And do you believe that the comments made by upper management were accurate on your skills and abilities?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further redirect.
Thank you. Does the defense have any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. This witness is excused. Plaintiff, if you want to call your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Dr. Rogers, I'll remind you that you are under oath.
All right. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Casey Rogers, Rogers.
What is your involvement in this case?
I have been retained as an expert to testify on behalf of the plaintiff in this matter.
What education do you have?
I received my PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of Berkeley at California. Prior to this, I received my bachelor's of science in chemistry and agriculture from Colorado State University.
What experience do you have with research analysis?
I worked as a research analyst in a pretty large multinational chemical company.
What does your research focus on?
My research focuses on the effects that prolonged exposure and the long-term effects that this can have on the human body, especially with various chemicals such as Drufo.
Your Honor, permission for my witness to refer to Exhibit 7.
Granted.
Let the record reflect that I am showing my witness what has been previously marked as Exhibit 7. Dr. Rogers, do you recognize Exhibit 7?
I do.
What is Exhibit 7?
Exhibit 7 is a list of all of my research publications.
How do you know this?
Because they're all of my research.
Is Exhibit 7 a complete and authentic list of your research publications?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Defense position?
No objections, Your Honor.
Without objection, Exhibit 7 is admitted into evidence.
What experience do you have with the chemical Drufo?
I have written numerous scholarly articles on the negative and harmful effects that Drufo can have. More recently, I've gotten into the effects it can have on the human body.
How long has your research been published for?
My research was first published in 2003, so for about 19 years now.
What has your research in Drufo been used in?
My research has not only been used in litigations, but it's also been used before administrative advisory boards to help with recommendations for those laborers who are working with those harmful chemicals, including Drufo.
What does your research show with the effectiveness of Drufo?
It shows that Drufo is not effective. It's actually resistant to certain weeds, and it also shows that it is toxic and carcinogenic.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to tender Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in the fields of agricultural research analysis and chemistry on the grounds of knowledge, education, and education.
I'm sorry, agricultural research,
Analysis.
analysis, and chemistry?
Yes.
Defense position?
A brief voir dire, Your Honor.
Please.
Dr. Rogers, your degrees are in agriculture, entomology, and chemistry, correct?
Yes.
And the classes you teach are horticultural entomology and herbicide selectivity in action?
Yes, that's correct.
And you have no medical degree?
I do not know.
And you have no formal education on how poisons affect the body?
No, but I have, I've studied agriculture and entomology, which I feel like is pretty close.
The study you published in 2017 was simply a review of the EU's decision, correct?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
I am establishing the witnesses' past research and what they have done in regards to agricultural research analysis, which is what this question directly refers to.
Any reply from the plaintiff?
Sorry, I apologize. It doesn't make it, this can be brought up on cross if opposing counsel wishes, but this doesn't go towards, it's not necessary that these facts are being admitted in a voir dire for their credentials.
I believe that this is proper inquiry into her qualifications as an expert. I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes or no, the studies you published in 2003, 2011, 2013, and 2019 were specifically in weed biology and were related to plants, correct?
Yes, this is true.
And the only study of your own research published in relation to the human body was in the 2019 Environmentalist, yes?
Yes, and that was on Drufo.
So you've only published one study on the human body, yes?
Yes, in relation to Drufo.
And you have no formal education on the human body, correct?
No, I do not.
Objection, Your Honor. This goes against the scope of what the expert has been entered in. I didn't enter them in anything medical related. This isn't necessary in the voir dire.
Response?
I am aiming to enter this witness as an expert in all chemistry except that relating to the human body, as they have no formal education. So I feel that this question is necessary as it establishes that there is no education on the human body.
Objection overruled. If you'd like, Dr. Rogers, if you'd like the question re-asked again, please ask.
Yes, will you please?
And you have no formal education in the human body, correct?
I do not. My education is in agriculture and chemistry, which I mean, I use that in my research.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, I tender Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in the field of horticulture, entomology, and agriculture, but not as an expert in human body related chemistry.
So the plaintiff actually moved to qualify Dr. Rogers. So are you objecting to their motion to qualify her as an expert in agricultural research, analysis, and chemistry?
Yes, Your Honor, I apologize.
So what is the basis?
The witness has no formal education in the human body, therefore they should not be allowed to speak on human body related chemistry. I am not objecting to the agricultural research analysis.
Response to the objection?
Yes, Your Honor. When entering an expert witness, we need to have at least one of the 5 categories. I've laid down 2: experience and knowledge. My witness has laid down the proper foundation that they went to college and got a PhD in agriculture and entomology. They also laid the foundation down that they have a degree in agricultural and chemistry. This goes with their being entered in for in agricultural science analysis. Excuse me, it goes into what I'm entering them in because they have the experience and it's been laid down that the foundation has been laid down that they have this experience and knowledge.
So Dr. Rogers has been offered as an expert in the area of agricultural research, analysis, and chemistry. I didn't hear any motions to qualify her as an expert on the human body or anything else. So the court will receive her as an expert in the area of agricultural research, analysis, and chemistry, and she will be permitted to provide opinions in that area.
Why did you start researching Drufo?
I mean, Drufo first caught my attention as soon as it was released to the market. I believed that it had been pushed through without passing certain safety recommendations. And so I wanted to create my own study where I could monitor the adverse health effects that it could have in humans.
What Lush products have Drufo as an ingredient?
Drufo is a patented ingredient, meaning it is found in all of Lush's products. It is a bonding agent, so it is meant to keep the fertilizer together and intact.
Let's talk about the chemistry involved in Drufo. What did you use to analyze the chemical makeup of Drufo?
I personally analyzed all the chemical makeup and I used a mass spectrometer.
Is Drufo carcinogenic?
I believe so, yes.
What studies did you conduct with Drufo?
I conducted a study where I got a control group of people who had never been exposed to Drufo, a group of casual gardeners who were sometimes exposed to Drufo, and a group of farmers who were exposed to Drufo on a regular to daily basis.
How long was the study monitored for?
The study was monitored for a year, and I monitored all of the adverse health effects that each of the participants developed.
What were the results of this test?
The results found an increase in serious health conditions, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and cancer, in those who were exposed more regularly to Drufo. The group that was exposed on a regular basis, the farmers, were 10 times more likely to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma than the control group, and those of the gardeners were 5 times more likely to develop a serious illness, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, than the control group.
What did you conclude from the results?
I concluded that there had to be a link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo.
How did you come to this conclusion?
I came to this conclusion since majority of the participants were diagnosed with an endocrine or endocrine version of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
How does a person get non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is not a genetic disease, meaning the only way you can get it is from environmental impact.
Let's talk about Dakota Weirs. Where did Dakota Weirs work?
Dakota Weirs worked at a landscaping company.
What was she exposed to while working?
She was exposed to Drufo on a regular basis for almost 4 years.
What is Dakota's exposure similar to?
Their exposure is very similar to those in my studies, those farmers who were exposed on a regular basis to Drufo.
What are all your conclusions in this case based on?
All of my conclusions, are based on my evidence, my training, my study, all the data that I've collected.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense Cross?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. You started researching Drufo instead of numerous other chemicals you say you were worried about because of rumors you heard, correct?
I started researching Drufo. Even if I was concerned about other chemicals, Drufo was the one that stood out to me the most. I thought it was the most dangerous and the most worrisome. So yes, that's what I started researching.
But before beginning research, you never requested any of Lush's studies, correct?
I did not. I wanted to do my own research.
So you never looked into both sides of the research before you began study, yes?
Yes, I started my own study. I did my own research.
Yes or no, your study came to the conclusion that Drufo was carcinogenic.
Question asked and answered.
Response?
I have not yet asked this question in cross, but if you would like me to move on, I can.
Objection overruled. I don't recall having heard that question.
Yes or no, that agrees with the impression of Drufo that you already had from others.
It does, but that's what the data I gathered from my study.
And this study wasn't peer reviewed, was it?
No, it has not been.
And so your work confirmed your suspicions and was never reviewed by others, correct?
It was not reviewed by others, and it did confirm my suspicions, but that doesn't mean that it's not reliable.
Included within the 3 groups of study were farmers and gardeners, correct?
Yes, and a control group of those who were never exposed.
Farmers and gardeners interact with Drufo in very different ways, correct?
Yes, you could say that.
Gardeners don't work with crops, right?
No, not necessarily.
And farmers don't typically work with decorative plants, correct?
Correct.
These different types of plants require different chemicals, correct?
Yes.
Yes or no, did your study account for these environmental differences?
My study did not, but it did focus solely on Drufo, and that was what they all had in common.
Yes or no, did your study account for any other chemicals used by the study groups?
No, it did not. We were focusing solely on Drufo.
So your study has no way to prove that there weren't other similarities in the group's environments?
No, it does not. But like I've said, the Drufo was the chemical that I was focusing on throughout my study.
So to clarify, your study does not definitively prove it was Drufo that raised those groups' risks of cancer and not any other environmental similarity, correct?
Objection compound.
Response?
I am just clarifying and going further into the question. It's not a separate inquiry.
Objection overruled. Dr. Rogers, if you need the question repeated, you can ask.
Yes, will you please repeat the question?
So your study does not definitively prove it was Drufo that raised those groups' risk of cancer and not another environmental similarity, correct?
I believe that Drufo is the cause of their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and the illness that they developed, but it could have been other environmental impacts. But like I said, I monitored Drufo in this study.
In your direct, you claim your study was conclusive, correct?
Yes.
And the conclusion of this study suggests correlation, correct?
Correlation between other environmental impacts, or I'm sorry, I'm confused in the questioning.
And the conclusion of this study suggests a correlation between Drufo and an increase in cancer.
Yes.
And according to the scientific method, correlation and causation are not the same, right?
They are not, but I mean, in this study, it was, like I said, Drupa we were focusing on.
So your study cannot prove Drufo is carcinogenic, only suggest it from faulty evidence, correct?
I mean, I don't think the evidence is faulty, but I mean, it does suggest that Drupa is carcinogenic. Yes.
So to clarify, your study cannot prove beyond preponderance of evidence that Drufo is carcinogenic.
Objection argumentative.
Response?
I am clarifying and ensuring that the witness has proper ability to answer the question.
I believe that this intrudes on the jury's province of deciding, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Does the plaintiff have redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Please.
What are all your conclusions based on in this case?
My conclusions are based on the evidence and my education and the tools that I had at my disposal. I mean, and my study. I feel like my study is very reliable, and I used all my information that I think is reliable is from that study.
No further redirect, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any recross based on that redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the plaintiff have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests his case in chief.
Thank you. Defense, please call your first witness.
Your Honor, we call Blake Duncourt to the stand.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Duncourt. Could you please state your full name and spell the last for the court?
Blake
My apologies. Ms. Duncourt, I will remind you that you are under oath. I'm sorry, please proceed.
No problem, Your Honor. I'll just repeat the question. Good afternoon, Ms. Doncourt. Could you please state your full name and spell the last for the court?
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
Where are you currently employed?
I am the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer.
What is Lush Fertilizer?
Lush Fertilizer creates and produces fertilizers for vibrant, lush green grass that also protects the environment and the safety of our customers.
How long has Lush Fertilizers been operating?
22 years.
Has Lush Fertilizer ever received recognition for the impact of their products?
Lush was one of the recipients of the prestigious CL Business Sustainability Awards. I have also been personally nominated for the United Nations Champions of the Earth Award.
What is Drufo?
Drufo is a bonding agent within our fertilizers that prevents agricultural pollution.
And at any point since the invention and the research of Drufo, has Lush's products ever been found dangerous?
No, there has been no valid research that shows Lush's products to ever be dangerous.
What research has been done to ensure the safety of Drufo?
We have conducted in-depth and thorough reviews of Drufo, developing years of research into it, making sure that it's absolutely safe.
Have you seen any reliable sources proving Drufo is carcinogenic?
I have never seen any scientific evidence showing that Drufo is carcinogenic. Casey Rogers claims to have some sort of study about Drufo, but I've never seen it in any scientific journal.
Would you let Drufo go on the market if there were verifiable risks of the carcinogenic qualities of it?
If I'd seen any verifiable risks in the fertilizer, then it would have never gone on the market.
And why is that?
I would have never allowed our company to put a dangerous product on the market. I am an invalid environmentalist that cares about the safety of my customers.
Do you by chance have a copy of Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Let the record show that this is a clean and unmarked copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1. I request permission to show Exhibit 1 to Blake Doncourt. Can you identify this exhibit?
It is the Lush Fertilizer label.
And did your company make their label?
Yes.
Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 1 into evidence at this time. The authenticity of the exhibit has been stipulated.
Exhibit 1 has already been admitted by the first plaintiff witness, so it already is in evidence.
Okay, I'll move on. Are the words hazards and safety recommendation present on the label?
Yes.
What do these sections state?
These labels instruct the user on how to properly use the product to ensure their safety.
Is one of these recommendations to use PPE?
Yes.
Do any of these recommendations specifically mention Drufo?
No, they do not.
Why is there no warning for the use of Drufo in the product?
As Dr. Devins will tell you, our toxicology research and development team did not find anything dangerous in the product, which did not require to put a warning.
Was this ever reviewed by organizations outside of Lush?
Yes, the EPA approved the sale of Lush fertilizers with this label.
If there had been a risk, would baking have eliminated the risk?
Yes, it would have.
Why didn't you bake your product?
We are a company that prides itself on being environmentally and economically conscious. We want our product to be available to as many people as possible, and there simply was not a need, as Drufo isn't carcinogenic and the EPA had already approved the sale.
Have there been any other consumers with the same condition as the plaintiff?
No.
Could the plaintiff not wearing proper protective gear have had an issue with how Drufo might have affected her if it was truly carcinogenic?
Yes.
How?
Like any fertilizer, you need to take protective measures, and Dakota Wears did not do that.
Does your label clearly state to wear the protective gear?
Yes.
Did you take all the proper precautions to ensure your consumer's safety?
Yes, we took every precaution to esteem our consumer safety.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the plaintiff have a cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Lush Fertilizer makes enough money for you and your company to be growing strong, correct?
Yes, it does.
Lush even makes enough money to donate 10% of its profits to environmental charities?
Yes.
Your Honor, may the witness refer to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 8?
You have a copy of that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please.
Ms. Doncourt, do you have the exhibit ready?
Yes.
Ms. Doncourt, you know what Exhibit 8 is?
Yes, it is an amortization table.
Exhibit 8 is a table that you made.
Yes, I did make this table.
This is a fair and accurate representation of the table that you made?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Exhibit 8 into evidence as authenticity and accuracy has been stipulated.
Defense position?
No objections, Your Honor.
Without objection, Exhibit 8 is received into evidence.
On Exhibit 8, you wrote that if you baked your fertilizer, it would only increase the cost by 1% per year.
Along with $250,000.
So that's a yes to my question. You wrote that if you bake your fertilizer,
Yes.
it would only. When Lush fertilizer is baked, it has no risk of being carcinogenic, correct?
My fertilizer already didn't have any risk. So yes, it would have removed any risk if there were any.
You knew that baking the fertilizer eliminated the risk of your consumers contracting cancer.
Like I said, if the fertilizer had any risks.
And you made the choice not to bake the product
Yes, I did.
because it was too expensive?
Not because it was too expensive, because there was no valid studies to prove that our fertilizer was carcinogenic, therefore making it dangerous. So there was really no need to bake the fertilizer.
So is that a yes or no to my question, Ms. Doncourt? You didn't bake your fertilizer because it was too expensive.
I didn't bake it because it wasn't too expensive. I did not bake it because there was no need to.
Lush doesn't bake their products despite Lush bringing in more than enough money to do so.
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Defense have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
This witness is excused. Defense, please call your next witness.
At this time, the defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Skylar, I'll remind you that you are under oath.
Please state your name and spell the last for the court. You're muted.
Oh, my bad. Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
And why are you in court today?
I am here in court today to talk about Durafo and the link between Durafo and cancer.
What is your relation to the plaintiff?
I am Dakota Weir's twin.
Do you have an education?
I chose to forego college, but I am highly qualified to tell you about Durafo.
And are you currently employed?
I am currently employed for Rationalist Magazine.
And what do you do for Rationalist Magazine?
I'm an investigative journalist for Rational Magazine.
What exactly is an investigative journalist?
So an investigative journalist is a journalist that researches a specific topic of interest. They can spend months or even a year researching that one topic to then write a report on that specific topic.
What kind of works have you done as a journalist?
Well, I have written several prominent articles for Rationalist Magazine.
Okay. And what experience has this given you in the field of agritech?
It's given me many different experiences. I've learned a lot about Durafo and the different effects it can have on different things, different crops.
Your Honor, motion to classify my witness as an expert in the field of agritech business and journalism.
Agrotech and journalism.
Agritech, field of agritech business and journalism.
Plaintiff response.
Yes, Your Honor, I object to those grounds and those expertise because there's a pretrial ruling that Skylar Weirs will be entered in as an expert in journalism. And furthermore, they can't be entered in as this because the proper foundation that they maintained information from the USDA and NASDA hasn't been laid.
Response from the defense.
It is said that, I'm sorry, I said modern agritech and journalism.
So at this time, I am going to deny qualifying Skylar Weirs as an expert. The witness did say they know a lot about Durafo, but no background, no indication of where this information came from. I will grant the request to qualify the witness as an expert in journalism, but not in the area of agritech business.
But Your Honor, the pretrial ruling states that they will be entered in for agricultural technology, not journalism. I'm sorry if that was a fault on my end, but I just wanted to clarify that before we proceed.
We'll review the ruling. So the plaintiff filed an objection to the expert being endorsed in the area of modern agritech. Didn't say anything about journalism. I'm finding that there has been a sufficient foundation laid to qualify her as an expert in journalism. I will give the defense an opportunity to lay more foundation as to modern agritech. But at this point, the court does recognize the witness as an expert in journalism.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am still confused though if he's an expert in agritech because the testimony has said that the pretrial has said that Skylar Wires is testifying as an expert witness regarding modern agritech.
So the pretrial ruling was that you could admit them if you laid a proper foundation. What I'm finding is that you didn't lay a proper foundation. The witness did say, I know a lot about DERFO, but I have no source of that information. I don't know what they know. I don't know what studies, anything like that. So right now I don't have enough evidence or reason to believe that they would be an expert witness in that area.
I apologize. I will move on. Mr. Wise, how long have you been researching DRUFO?
Nearly a year.
And what did you learn while researching?
I've learned many different things from researching Durafo. A key part is that Durafo doesn't have as much pesticides and nitrogen as other common grass products do. So this is revolutionary in the modern agritech world.
And what was your processing of researching DRUFO?
So I've researched many different articles from modern agritech companies, and I also retained a lot of information from the USDA and the NSDA regarding Durafo.
And have you researched about GMO crops?
I have. So I have researched the effectiveness of GMO crops. GMO technology has increased crop yields over the past 20 years, and GMO is not only safe, but it can increase efficiency on products as well.
Do you think that there are any risks from modern agricultural products?
Can you restate that, please?
Do you think there are any risks from modern agricultural products?
I don't think there are any risks. For example, pesticides and herbicides are poison. The purpose is to kill harmful organisms that threaten the health of a plant or crop.
Can you explain grass seed products?
Modern grass seed products are treated with herbicides that are able to maintain lush green grass but kill the common weed.
And how is nitrogen a soluble substance?
It soaks deep into the soil after a rainstorm.
How are GM crops safe?
Objection.
Technology allows us to find ways of reducing.
I'm going to ask the witness to hold on. Ms. Duffy, if you can state the basis for your objection.
Improper expert opinion.
Response?
I will move on.
Okay, the jury is instructed to disregard that response. Please continue.
How is DRUFO effective?
It's an effective bonding agent. So you only need a small amount of fertilizer for it to be effective, which is not common in many grass seed products.
And how often do you think DRUFO needs to be sprayed?
Once or twice a year.
And why is it that DRUFO only needs to be sprayed once or twice a year?
Because it's such an effective bonding agent, so it sticks to the plant so much more longer than other grass seed products, so it doesn't wash off. So because of that, it only needs to be applied once or twice a year, and other grass seed products need to be applied 5 to 6 times a year.
And in what way do you think lush fertilizer is getting rid of nitrogen?
So just because you only need to spray it a couple of times a year, you're getting rid of that extra nitrogen that these other grass products have. So because you only need to spray it once or twice a year, it's getting rid of most of that nitrogen.
Those are all the questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Plaintiff Cross?
Yes, briefly. You've testified that DRUFO gets rid of the nitrogen.
No, I never said it gets rid of nitrogen. It has lack of nitrogen because it only needs to be sprayed a couple of times a year. So you don't have that amount of nitrogen getting sprayed on the crops.
You've testified that it has less nitrogen, lush fertilizer.
Well, you only need to spray less nitrogen.
Let's start off with your previous education. You don't have a college degree.
No, I do not. But again, I am qualified to tell you about Durafo.
Let's move on to your twin. You don't have the stereotypical close twin relationship with Dakota Weirs.
Yes.
It wouldn't surprise you if Dakota Weirs developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma from her workplace.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Nitrogen is known to cause cancer.
Yes, it is.
Nitrogen is an ingredient in Lush fertilizer.
Yes, but it also states that Dakota used many other grass seed products. So Dakota most likely got this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer from these other products because there's more harmful chemicals in it, like nitrogen and pesticides.
Just to be clear, that's a yes to my question. Nitrogen is an active ingredient in Lush fertilizer.
Yes, it is.
Dakota was exposed to Lush fertilizer at the workplace.
Yes, but as well as many other chemicals or grass seed products.
Let's move on to your financial situation. You hardly make any money off your journaling job.
I'm a freelancer, so I make money per hour instead of how well my articles do. And I have a side job at a server at Applebee's.
Is that a yes or no to my question? You hardly make any money off your journaling job.
Yes.
In fact, you make so little income, you're a part-time server at Applebee's.
Yes, that is correct.
Just to make ends meet. Just to make ends meet, you work all these jobs.
Yes, but I don't do the jobs for the money. I do the jobs for providing scientific information.
You have incurred significant debt
Yes, I have.
because of your gambling.
Yes.
You haven't been able to climb out of this hole for years now.
Yes.
Your parents were helping you out financially a little bit before this.
Yes, before this.
You're a beneficiary in your father's will,
Yes, I am.
and your twin is the only other beneficiary in this will besides you.
That is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense have a redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. This witness is excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams. Can you please state your name and spell the last for the record?
Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
Dr. Williams, where do you work?
I work at Lush Fertilizer as head of the Toxicology Research and Development Labs, as well as a member of the Ethics Committee, and I'm a professor at the University of New Mexico of Pharmacy.
What are your duties at your place of employment?
At Lush, I currently oversee all the environmental impacts of our products, as well as interpret data sets to ensure that our products are safe and effective.
Where did you attend school?
Through undergrad to PhD, I attended Colorado State University in Fort Collins and the University of Utah.
And what classes are you qualified to teach?
I'm qualified to teach forensics, environmental, occupational, and medicinal toxicology.
Do you have a resume?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 9?
I do.
Dr. Devin Williams, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 9 available to you?
I do.
Dr. Williams, could you please identify what Exhibit 9 is?
It's a copy of my curriculum vitae.
Do you have the ability to change this document?
Yes.
Is this document updated?
Yes.
Is this document accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 9 into evidence at this time as its authenticity has been stipulated.
Plaintiff position?
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, Exhibit 9 is received into evidence.
Do you have any board certifications?
Yes, I have certifications in clinical, forensic, and basic toxicology.
What published scientific studies have you conducted?
I have published various toxicology-related phenomenons, I've published various toxicology-related phenomenons, including but not limited to the forensic aspects of poison and ethanol exposure in mice.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, at this time, I tender this witness as an expert in the fields of forensic, clinical, environmental, and occupational toxicology, in addition to statistic analyzation.
Whoa, that was way too fast for me. I'm sorry. Forensic clinical environmental toxicology.
Occupational toxicology.
Occupational.
Yeah. In addition to statistic analyzation.
Analyzation. Plaintiff, what's your position on this motion to qualify?
No objection to this witness being entered as an expert in those fields, Your Honor.
So the court will receive Dr. Williams as an expert in forensic, clinical, environmental, occupational toxicology, and statistical analysis and analyzation, I guess, analysis. And Dr. Williams will be entitled to provide experts in that area, provide opinion, expert opinion in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you tell us why you're here today?
To disprove the allegations against Lush Fertilizer that are both energetic and cause the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Dr. Williams, do you have any financial bias in this case?
I admit being an employee at Lush, I do, yes.
Thank you, Dr.
I'm
Williams.
sorry, one moment. Ms. Couillard, can you get closer to the microphone? I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry about that.
That's much better, thank you.
Dr. Williams, thank you, Dr. Williams. Do you have any other jobs
Yes.
or sources of income outside of Lush Fertilizers?
Your Honor, permission for the opposing counsel to re-ask their previous question. I did not hear the answer to it.
Counsel, would you mind?
I apologize. Of course. Dr. Williams, do you have any financial bias in this case?
Yes, I admit being an employee at Lush, I do.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Do you have other jobs or sources of income outside of Lush Fertilizers?
Yes, I do.
What other sources of income do you have?
I'm a tenured assistant professor at the University of New Mexico Pharmacy, as well as a visiting professor at Colorado State University.
Are you entirely dependent on Lush for your income?
No, I'm not.
As an employee of Lush, do you have the understanding on the workings of DRUFO?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the court how DRUFO works?
So DRUFO basically just binds the ingredients in its fertilizer to the plants or grass in which it is sprayed upon.
Why did Lush Fertilizers decide to create DRUFO?
DRUFO was created to mitigate nitrate pollution.
How does DRUFO address nitrate pollution?
Well, DRUFO addresses nitrate pollution because when DRUFO is sprayed, it binds to the plant in which it is sprayed and ensures that less needs to be sprayed. With less needing to be sprayed, then there is less washed away into the soil, and this prevents the nitrate pollution process of eutrophication.
Has there been any resistance to using DRUFO as a way to reduce nitrate pollution?
Yes, there are restrictions in the EU, Haiti, and Liberia against DRUFO.
Is there a specific reason for these restrictions that you know of?
Yes, there is.
Is the reason for these restrictions related to cancer risks?
No, it is not.
Why is DRUFO restricted in the EU?
It's restricted due to the European Union's nitrate directive and because there is no recorded lab results of a reduction of nitrate in DRUFO.
Does DRUFO display the same nitrogen behaviors in nature?
No.
Why is this?
Well, regular fertilizers produce X amount of nitrates, and so does DRUFO under lab conditions. However, the bacteria used in the lab do not resemble real-world environments.
Did Lush contest the EU's decision?
No, it did not.
Why did Lush let the decision on DRUFO stand?
Well, when the regulation against DRUFO came out, then Lush was just starting out as a brand new company. But with my department's current study, we hypothesized that DRUFO will be allowed in the EU.
When DRUFO was found in violation of federal laws in the EU, were products containing it immediately removed from sale?
Absolutely.
Other than the EU's restrictions, are there other protests to the sale of DRUFO?
Yes, Dr. Rogers' study.
Are there any issues with this study?
Yes, there are.
What problems are present in this study?
Well, the fundamental issue with Dr. Rogers' study is that there are multiple variables. What she did was she compared 3 different groups of people with vastly different lifestyles and environmental factors. A more valid study would have
Objection, Your Honor. Improper expert opinion.
Response?
This witness has been entered as an expert into statistics analyzation. I apologize for my mispronunciation, which would include analyzing the statistics of Dr. Rogers' study.
Reply.
Your Honor, this line of questioning does not go to the statistical analyzation of Dr. Rogers' study. It does, however, go to the research, which the witness has not been entered as an expert in.
Because the witness was entered as an expert in forensic, clinical, environmental, and occupational toxicology, I believe that this is an appropriate line of question, and I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Like I was saying, a more valid study would have needed to compare farmers who use DRUFO compared to farmers who use fertilizers without DRUFO to isolate the variable being tested.
Has Dr. Rogers' study ever been peer-reviewed or replicated?
No, it has not.
Why is peer review and experiment replication important?
While peer review is important to eliminate any bias in science, it allows others to analyze the results to ensure that the scientific method was used and that there was no bias involved. And replicating is important to determine whether an experiment was simply an outlier to a larger data set.
Have you reached any conclusion relating to the plaintiff's claims on Dr. Rogers' conclusions?
Yes, I've concluded that DRUFO is non-carcinogenic.
How did you come to your conclusion?
I interpreted the data sets and saw that it was consistent that there was not an elevated risk to developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma to users of DRUFO compared to users of other fertilizers.
Why did you use data sets to help you prove DRUFO's safety?
Well, data sets help to eliminate any bias, outliers, and random element.
In your expert opinion, do you believe DRUFO caused the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I'm confident that DRUFO did not cause the plaintiff's disease.
Thank you. No further questions.
Plaintiff Cross,
Yes, Your Honor.
please.
Let's begin with your record working at Lush. You got promoted to lead the Lush research and development labs
Yes, that is true.
because 50% of the DRUFO development team had quit.
Well, by the time since about 50% had left by the time I was promoted.
So that's a yes. You were admitted to lead the research and development labs because 50% of the DRUFO development team had quit.
After the 50% had quit, yes.
Let's talk about your knowledge with DRUFO. DRUFO is banned in Europe.
Yes, that is correct due to the European Nitrates Directive. But with my department's current study, we hypothesize that soon DRUFO will be regulated in Europe.
Lush could have fought this ban.
Well, the problem is that when this restriction just came out, then Lush was just started out as a new company and we did not have the resources to contest the decision just yet.
So was that a yes, Lush could have fought this ban?
Well, we were just starting out as a new company. It would have been difficult.
I'm going to ask you one more time. That's a yes, Lush could have fought this ban.
There's a possibility if we had the right resources.
Yet they didn't fight this ban.
No, we did not.
Lush opted to choose the less environmentally friendly choice.
I'm sorry?
Lush opted to choose the less environmentally friendly choice in taking DRUFO out of the products.
Well, we took the DRUFO out of the products because at the time it was easier.
So Lush opted to choose the less environmentally friendly choice.
Objection asked and answered.
Response.
Your Honor, I don't believe that I got a definitive yes or no answer to that question.
Objections overruled.
Would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yes, please.
Lush opted to choose the less environmentally friendly choice in taking DRUFO out of their products for the EU.
I guess you could say that, yes.
Because they didn't have the resources to fight the ban.
No, we did not have the resources.
Lush only uses DRUFO in the US.
Yes.
And Lush's CEO, Blake Doncourt, needed you to keep DRUFO cost effective.
Yes, cost effective and environmentally friendly.
And finally, you've admitted to having a financial bias in this case?
Yes, I do, but Lush is not my only source of income.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Defense, do you have a redirect?
No, Your Honor.
This witness is excused. Does the defense have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests their case.
Thank you. Plaintiff, are you ready for your closing argument?
One moment, Your Honor. We are just having some brief technical difficulties.
That's fine.
Ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please proceed.
We sit here today because of greed, because Lush chose money over their customer safety. When the CEO, Blake Doncourt, learned that their products could be carcinogenic, they made a table about how Lush's spendings would increase by 1% if they chose to bake their product to eliminate the risk of their consumers contracting cancer. Only after that did Lush make the decision to not bake their products. At 20 years old, Dakota Weir's life has been ruined because of Lush's unethical and self-serving choices. Greed has made Dakota Weir's unable to succeed. The plaintiff acknowledges that we have a burden of proof. We must meet our burden of proof with the evidence supporting that Lush negligently caused Dakota Weir's to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. We have done so today by proving 4 of those things, 2 which are undisputed. 1, Lush manufactured a fertilizing product containing Drufo. This is undisputed. 2, Lush could have reasonably expected Dakota Weir's to use Lush fertilizer. Since Dakota worked for a landscaping company, this is the exact type of person that Lush would have reasonably expected to utilize their product. This is undisputed. 3, Lush was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent their product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm to people like Dakota Weir's. You heard Blake Doncourt say they chose to not bake their product because it was better for their bank account. You heard Dr. Casey Rogers testify about the research leading to one conclusion. Drufo can cause severe health conditions to its consumers, including Dakota Weir's. You saw Exhibit 1, Lush Fertilizer's label, which included no warning of this possibility. You heard Carson Durst testify about how Lush was pressuring employees to only give positive results about Drufo's testing. Carson told you the final report turned out to look more like an advertisement. Lush has ignored the hard facts in front of them because of their greed. Defense witness Dr. Devin Williams brushed over the fact that Drufo is banned overseas and how Lush was able to create a version of its fertilizer without Drufo for those overseas countries. But not for America, not for Dakota Weir's, because that would have affected Lush's bottom line. We have proven by a preponderance of evidence that Lush was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent their product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm to people like Dakota Weir's. The 4th element we must prove is that Dakota had damages that were caused by Lush's negligence, while the product was being used in a manner Lush had reasonably expected. Dakota had a bright future and a full ride to Juilliard. Ever since Lush's negligence caused her non-Hodgkin lymphoma, Dakota hasn't had the energy to do basic activities or play the piano. While losing a loved one is painful, Dakota has had to feel as if she's lost her grandfather for a second time because she can't even sit down long enough to play a piece on the piano. It physically hurts her to do the things she is passionate about. The plaintiff has presented enough evidence to the jury to find that Dakota incurred damages in the following: quality of life, emotional trauma, and financial hardship. The product only recommended consumers to wear the protective gear as shown as Exhibit 1. Lush never mentioned the consequences of not wearing the protective gear, meaning Lush Fertilizer should have reasonably expected Dakota Weir's to use the fertilizer as she did. Now, the defense also has a burden of proof for their affirmative defense, which they have failed to meet. You heard how Skylar Weir's, the known gambler, has been harping on how effective Drufo is, when in reality, Dr. Rogers' study has rebutted Drufo's so-called effectiveness with their published research. Blake Doncourt is the one person
who could have eliminated Dakota's being affected by Drufo just by simply ordering their company to bake their fertilizer. While Lake Doncort claims they're environmentalist, one thing is certain: they're not a humanitarian. Lake Doncort's greed has made Dakota Weirs unable to succeed. Members of the jury, I ask you to hold Lake Doncort accountable and enter a verdict in favor of the plaintiff today. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the defense have a closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission for the timekeepers to put how much time I have remaining in the chat.
I believe you still have your full time, right?
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure. I wanted to verify. Let me begin with jury instructions 2 and 8. These instructions say that if the plaintiff used the product in any way that the defendant did not expect, or if the plaintiff failed to do something that a reasonably careful people would do, a non-negligent verdict must be passed. This case comes down to these jury instructions. Lush Fertilizer placed a warning label on the product showing they expected any reasonable person to use some sort of protection. This places responsibility on the plaintiff. She used the product outside of their expectations. In addition, the plaintiff acted unreasonably. The plaintiff was working with industrial grade chemicals. The plaintiff was warned by their boss verbally. The plaintiff knew there were hazards, whether long or short term. And the plaintiff chose not to wear a mask. The plaintiff chose to take responsibility, chose to be negligent, and ignore the warnings they were given. The prosecution attempted to say that Lush was negligent through the firing of an incompetent employee and a study performed outside of the scientific method. They attempted to prove that a purportedly honest employee was fired as a cover-up. This is simply false. Carson Durst was a bad employee from the beginning. Her performance reports were always poor. That was not changed by her purportedly honest reports. Carson Durst has no evidence showing her performance reports worsened. All she has is the resentment for an old friend turned boss who fired her due to incompetence. She has no way of knowing that her study was ignored. All she has is a vaguely worded email that may have excluded mention of her study because it was an outlier. Once again, they have failed to prove beyond a preponderance of evidence that Lush was aware of any possible carcinogens in Drufo. Then they attempted to prove the carcinogenic qualities in Drufo through a faulty study. A study that has too many variables to be considered valid. A study that included those that work with industrial grade chemicals on a farm professional level and those that spray flowers as a pastime in the same group of exposure. Dr. Rogers did not analyze the environments of their test subjects. She does not have the research necessary to prove that the increase in risk falls on Drufo. It could have fallen on any common environmental factors working with those chemicals. Then this study tried to disguise itself as hard evidence, when in reality, all it can prove is loose correlation, not even causation. They failed to prove beyond a preponderance of evidence that Drufo has a direct causal relationship with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They failed to meet their burden of proof. They failed to meet a 50% chance that the defendant was negligent. Drufo is not carcinogenic, so it does not need to be baked. There is no evidence in this case proving Drufo to be carcinogenic, so there was no necessity for the product to be baked. Lush is a company, and the motive of a company is to make effective and safe products that turn a profit. The plaintiff says 1% as if it is not hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is a large loss for a company, especially when there's no need to do it. Lush is a company that may have chosen to go against their environmental ideals when they were still small, but they are contesting it now. The plaintiff says that Lush should have fought the ban then, which is incredibly expensive, but then attacks them for saving money now to fight that very same claim. This has brought slander upon Lush, a company that is just trying to do their best with the resources they have been provided. The slander that has brought this lawsuit today. Slander that is currently attacking Lush and hindering their ability to release a fertilizer that prevents pollution. Slander that asks you, the jury, to ignore the most important part of this case. The plaintiff did not wear a mask. The plaintiff was warned and chose not to protect herself. Any reasonable person would knowing that working with industrial grade chemicals is dangerous. Any reasonable person spraying chemicals would wear a mask. The plaintiff was negligent. The product was safe. Those are the only things that matter in today's case. Thank you.
Thank you. For the prosecution's rebuttal, can we get a time check on how much time they have remaining?
My timekeepers informed me that it's 40 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Incompetent Carson Durst? This is the same witness who has a degree in mechanical engineering, but you know who didn't have a degree in college at all? Skylar Rears. Now, the slander that they're getting is what they deserve because Blake Doncourt chose to be a penny pincher and ignored the hard evidence in front of them. It's reasonable that Dakota Beers didn't wear a mask because they didn't include that their product could cause cancer. No company should do that and expect their consumers to not wear the protective gear. You need to hold Lush Fertilizer accountable and vote a verdict in favor of the plaintiff today.
Well, thank you. Congratulations. Looks like round 2 is now in the bag. Everybody stand up, take a deep breath and relax. You've got the evening to relax and prepare for tomorrow. So I'm going to give the scoring panelists a few minutes to submit their scores and tally everything up. I want to just make a couple of observations. It seemed like both sides' openings were amazing all the way through. The only thing is there seemed to be some nerves and everybody was talking 8,000 miles an hour. If you ever try and do this in front of a court reporter, they are going to be throwing things at you if you're talking that fast. One thing I did want to bring up with the direct of Skylar Weirs. Skylar was offered as an expert in agrotech and journalism. It was denied as for agrotech, but then you just went on and asked all kinds of questions about agrotech. At one point, Ms. Duffy did object, saying this is expert testimony. All of her testimony was expert. None of that should have come in. All of that was objectionable. What the defense attorney should have done was back up and lay a foundation. When I say I haven't heard enough, that means give me more. I heard that they have a lot of information about DERFO, but I don't know where it came from. That is a hint for you. Tell me where it comes from. Because by the time you got done with all the objectionable material, you had laid a foundation, and I would have absolutely admitted them for the agrotech. So just if they're denied as to your expert area, journalism really didn't do us much good, right? But absolutely qualified. If you can't get them qualified as an expert in what you want, then you need to stop, figure out what do I need to do in order to get Skylar Weirs appointed or accepted as an expert. But great job all the way around. Great closings. Really liked the themes. Great job. So impressed. Let me check with our panelists. It looks like Mr. Pereira, get your scores in, everything good?
I've submitted my scores. I don't know if it's all good, I think. With the online everything. But yes, I have submitted my scores.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and take a few minutes and provide some feedback to the attorneys?
Absolutely. So my name's Anthony. I'm an attorney with Metro Volunteer Lawyers. And I kind of agree with everything that's been said so far. I want to echo the slowing down while you're speaking, especially when you have things memorized or you're reading. Sometimes you just go a mile a minute and it's hard to follow as a person who doesn't know the case back and forth like you guys do. I liked when you guys use transition sentences. I'm going to talk about your background now and things like that to help me follow along. I think you guys could use it more. And I know both sides, you did use transition sentences. I think both sides also did a good job of dealing with things that are bad when first presenting, like the baking, for example, talking about that on direct. So that way you're not surprised when it comes out on cross, and then they can just kind of hammer you on that. If you do win an objection, make sure that you ask the same question again. Don't just move on to your next question, because otherwise you won the objection, but you didn't get your piece of evidence into the record at all. So make sure that you take a moment and ask that question again. I like themes. I like that the themes came up in opening and then the same exact theme got brought up in closing as well. So that's my feedback one-on-one.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira. Ms. Cope, did you have a chance to get your score submitted?
I did, Your Honor, yes.
Perfect. You want to go ahead and give them some feedback?
Yeah, of course. I think you all did really great. I know things are definitely can be odd with Zoom, and especially with you guys all transitioning the same computer. That was very impressive. You guys handled that all very, very well. And also, you know, using your hands when you were explaining things, but that definitely helped and made it more, you know, seemingly normal when we would normally be in person, but not using it too much. So great job there. You did really well with the themes, and your witnesses are great. Shout out to all of your guys' witnesses. You all did very, very well. It's really hard to remember someone's story that's not yours, and you guys handled it great. So really good job. Congrats, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Judge Lung, are you still having technical difficulties? And silence reigned. Well, so I'm going to ask everybody to kind of hang out. Our courtroom monitor, Ian, is going to let us know when we're all free to go. They need to go and make sure all the scores made it in. And hopefully Judge Lung is addressing his technological issues. Again, congratulations. Relax tonight. I know you're going to be stressing about tomorrow morning because you got to get right back to it. Oh, there he is.
Okay, so my mouse isn't working, so I'm finding out how to, tab, shift tab, alt keys. Oh, I'm so sorry about all that. So I'm really glad I got a chance to talk because I really wanted to give comment to, and I'm sorry, I don't have everybody's name. I know the first name is Caitlin. I think it's Duffy, and Miss Mallory, I can't read my own handwriting. Camberos, thank you. And then Ellis Simmons, I think. There was a tennis match between the three of you, and it was phenomenal. I loved it. It was just fantastic. You stayed on point. You were just nailing it. The witness was great. The attorneys were going back and forth, the voir dire, everything. It was like watching a regular trial. And I am a judge. I just don't like being a judge in these mock trials. I like being the scoring panelist. So it was great. And I'm trying to look through my notes here to see if there was others that I could point out. I agree that everybody did really well. I think you did really well also having to adjust with things. It's very difficult when your expert isn't made an expert or your exhibit isn't entered. Like, what do you do next? Like you had a script or a plan and you just have to, sometimes go on the fly. So I think you all adjusted really well to that and dealt with technical difficulties like the rest of us, or at least me. But I really did want to point out those three competitors. That was just a phenomenal job by all three of you, and so that was remarkable. Great job for everybody. Thank you for all your hard work. It was a joy to watch.
Thanks, Judge. Again, if everybody can just kind of hang out for a few minutes, Ian will give us the all clear once all the scores have been tallied.
And I was just sending a text over to make sure we have confirmation that they've all been received. So give me just a couple minutes here and we'll be ready to go.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, you guys, it looks like everything got through to the scoring group. So you guys are all free to go for tonight. And thank you all, judges and scorers, for your help today. And thank you all for your great presentations, students.
Thank you.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for judging.
Thank
Good
you
luck,
so
everybody,
much.
tomorrow.
Yeah, you too. Good luck, guys.
Are they the same people tomorrow? Jen?